Hello, everyone. How is everyone? Yeah? Woo, woo. Okay, well, first of all, I am so excited to be here. My name, as Galina just mentioned, is Julie Flakstad. I am the founder and host of the Midlife Truth Project, which was a personal quest turned research initiative turned podcast, which is about really this wildly explosive yet rarely talked about thing we call midlife. And so that being said, given my work, I could not have asked for a better, more dynamic duo than the two of you to be in conversation with, so thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce them both, but before I do that, I will say I've had the privilege of getting to know you guys a little bit better over the last few months, and we'll talk about that. And I am so struck by not only how talented you guys are, gals are, but also your deep commitment towards revealing midlife truth. And I see that in all the work and all the conversations that we've done, and really your own personal quest to change the narrative around aging. So that being said, I'm going to give them a little tee up, each of them. I'm sure she needs no introduction, but Constance Zimmer. Extraordinary actor who we have watched in so many different roles, and just to name a few, there was Entourage, there was Boston Legal, there was House of Cards, there was Lifetime's Unreal. I mean, the list goes on. She's incredible. She is also a producer and now the co-creator of a really special project that we're going to talk about today called the Midlife Monologues. And like I said, we're going to talk more about that later. And next to her, the fabulous Abby Epstein, who's also the fellow co-creator of the Midlife Monologues. I first got to know Abby as the director of the Vagina Monologues, and there are parallels between the projects, which we'll get to. But I really also am so enamored by her documentary work. I'm going to mention two of them in particular, given this audience. She produced and directed, together with her good friend Ricky Lake, The Business of Birth. Okay, just pause. That is an amazing one. It is required viewing for everyone. And also The Business of Birth Control. So I think that just if anybody is out there taking notes, which is usually me in the front row, write them down and definitely watch them. Okay, so we're going to get started by a truth. Truth is one of my favorite words. And truth number one is that this here, all of us sitting here, is not random. Nobody sits on a stage talking about things like midlife, menopause, aging, or is an advocate for Alzheimer's or any, subject without it being deeply personal. So I'm going to start with that, Constance. Why is midlife a subject that's personal to you? And really, what was your experience settling into your 40s and 50s?
I laugh because
how much time do you have?
I literally was like, you don't have enough time for my story. But what I will try and do is be very concise with my word, which is, you never know how you're going to experience this time until you experience it. And normally it's too late because you're in it and you're freaked out and you're stressed out and you're going through all of these emotions and all of these hormonal changes and not understanding why, even though people are telling you why, but they're still not giving you the full story. And, for me, I took my IUD out in 2023, October of 2023. And by December of 2023, I basically was shot out of a cannon without a parachute over a cliff and landed in a dirt mud pit that I thought I would never come out of ever again. And that's disturbing already in and of itself, but being an actor and realizing that these women are not represented anywhere. And if they are, they're represented in such a minute way. And I started to realize that if I'm going through this, every single woman must be going through this. So why are we not represented anywhere? Except we're represented in such a negative way from old stereotypes of age and numbers. And we are a generation of women, and I'll be very specific, but Generation X, we're killing it. We are killing it because we are the first generation of women in mass, right? There's been women that have been trying to spread these messages for years. But this is the first generation that is like, I'm sorry, I will not accept this. I will not be treated this way. I will not be shown that just because I now no longer can give birth to a human being that I am no longer valuable. I'm sorry. I'm even more valuable because I am now giving everything I have to myself, which means I'm more powerful than I've ever been. So of course you want to squash me. So I had all of this shit going on at the same time of being depressed and couldn't leave my house. And, I was just like, oh, I don't know what to do.
And not hard to believe.
Yeah, well, and so, and being a creative and knowing that I have a platform and knowing that there were so many other women in this age group that were probably going through these same emotions, I was like, where's the show? Where do we tell these stories to the world? And I thought about the vagina monologues and how monumental it was in talking about something that nobody wanted to talk about. You couldn't say the word vagina. It was like crazy. So originally it was the menopause monologues. And then when I teamed up with Abby and her experience of the vagina monologues, and in this tiny time frame of basically 6 months, menopause was everywhere. And is everywhere, and it's still coming. And there's 9 books on menopause coming out this year alone, right? And I was like, this is bigger than menopause.
Yes.
This is...
Say that again.
This is bigger than menopause. Yeah, because midlife is. It's what do you do when you have the tools? What do you do when you do know how to move forward? Don't judge us by our age, judge us by our attitude. Because we are a different attitude about aging. So that to me felt like it's about midlife. It's about the empowerment and the joy. We have to show the joy. And that to me felt like we can do it with a play because they won't let you do it on screen. And then maybe the industry will pay attention and realize how important these stories are and they need to be told.
Right.
Because that's what we're doing. So
Right.
I gave you literally the answer to probably 5 questions
You did.
in one.
You
so
did. That's
you're
all right.
welcome.
I've got more.
You're welcome.
But Abby, so I think it's important, this is personal for you too. Everybody's story is different, right? There's no one story. That's what makes, I feel like the project that you are going to be bringing to the stage so powerful, and also the documentary that we're working on so powerful, it's the collective story of so many women, and everyone's on-ramp to this time of life is different. Some people, it hits you with the diagnosis. Some people, it hits you with, a challenge at work or being let go or a divorce or, so many different things. So I'm curious for you, Abby, how is midlife, what has your experience been?
It's interesting because I actually just made a connection about something. I thought of something while Constance was talking, which is that, well, also because I see one of my favorite doulas in the house, and I was thinking about Business of Being Born, the documentary I made with Ricki Lake, and I was thinking, when I started to make that documentary, I had never been pregnant. I knew nothing about childbirth. I didn't, I thought, okay, this will probably happen to me someday. I thought my friend Ricki Lake was insane because she wanted to have she had this baby in her bathtub and she wanted to do this film about midwives. And I was like, this is so boring. who's gonna watch this? Like I literally didn't know. And then like all of a sudden when I got a little bit educated about midwifery and birth, I was like, oh my God, this is feminist. I didn't even get it. I thought birth was a medical thing. I thought you just went and got as many drugs as you could get, and you try to like get through the experience unscathed. Like, I didn't understand there was a spiritual journey to it. I didn't know you had to advocate for your birth. And so I feel like that movie, you know, what we did or what we tried to do was really support women through what should be the most powerful moment in your life, right? Bringing life into the world, but yet it was the most disempowering moment of almost everybody we spoken to. People felt extremely violated by the medical system, by experiences in the hospital, by having their power literally taken away. So it's interesting because coming into this project, for me, it was similar, right? In that when I met Constance, and she'd had this very specific experience, like the hormonal cliff that she describes. And I haven't had that, but I know friends that have that. But as I've like dove deep into this community and to develop the play, the Midlife Monologues, we've been collecting stories. So we've been holding story salons, circles. We've even been doing dressing room confessions, taking over stores and letting women go in and tell their stories. And as I've been listening to all these women's stories, you know, I've been realizing, okay, this is another transition. This is like, you know, the onset of menstruation, or, you know, becoming a mother or becoming pregnant, or, you know, it is another portal. It is a portal, and nobody
I love that word, portal.
Yeah, it is. It's a portal. It's a renaissance. It can be. It can be if you have the right tools, right? If somebody doesn't take your IUD out at 53 years old and not maybe tell you that something might happen, you know, to your mental health. So it's like, you know, but it's something, again, it's very similar going back to like childbirth, where it's just like women are not being told, you know, there's an on-ramp to this period of life. There's a whole spiritual journey around it. It might start for you at 40, might start for you at 45. It might not start till 50. You know, for me, I think it started probably around 44 when I separated from my partner and became a single mom. That's probably when it, you know, really was the most intense. But it's, you know, it has to be reframed, you know, I think. And women have to understand that this time when you get this freedom from these roles that you've held, right? Mother, daughter, sister, wife, you get like freedom from these roles and this caretaking, and like you come back to yourself. And the stories we've been collecting have just been extraordinary.
So let's pause there, because I'm curious. Talk to us about the stories. I mean, obviously, you mentioned you're doing these dressing room confessionals, you're doing these circles with women to draw inspiration, I'm assuming, for the monologues, for the script. Tell me about, or tell us about, what you're hearing in the circles. And if you can, I'm curious about, like, what are probably like 2 or 3 of the, I call them aches, but like the most vulnerable, you know, themes that you're drawing from. And also I'll double it up with another question, which is, what has surprised you? What is like something that you were like, oh wow, like I didn't think about that?
Well, I'd say the biggest surprise for me has been how incredibly vulnerable every single woman is, no matter the situation. Sometimes these circles, no one knows anyone in the circle, and they're talking about things that they haven't shared with their closest friend or their therapist, even with their partner. I mean, you name it, and it creates like an immediate community. It's the thing, like, it's that club you never knew you wanted to be a part of. But I've never been more grateful to be a part of this club. Whatever is, if this club is midlife, this is fucking glorious because all of you women are fucking amazing. And I get really emotional because that is what I'm realizing we are not told enough. And whether you got to wake up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am fucking amazing, even if you don't feel it, it's there. And that for me has been so, like, it just touches me in such a way I didn't know I was gonna get, even from people I don't know. Because obviously a lot of these people in the community are friends of mine, are people I've met along the way, but seeing them feel so protected in these spaces has really been wonderful. And how empowering it is, how it is true. We are all better together. And the whole competitiveness of women and not supporting women is bullshit. There are women out there supporting women, right? And so this is what makes me excited. Like, I've played these roles on television and I've never been this woman in real life. I've only been them on TV, and I always had this dream of like, oh my God, if I could just be more like Quinn on Unreal, or if I could just be more like Dana Gordon on Entourage, I would get some shit done.
You are.
But
you are.
I'm in my Quinn era, like for real.
I love that. Oh, I love it. I love
That's
it.
been very surprising.
You are in your Quinn era.
So, I mean, I want to go back to the dressing room confessionals. I'm kind of fascinated by women who are looking in a mirror and telling their deepest truth. And one of the things that I've found in the work that I do is that it's not a shift, right? Midlife is not a shift. It is a myriad of shifts that are seemingly all happening at the same time, right? Like for some people, it's a tsunami, but for other people, it's just like these waves that come crashing over you one at a time with just enough time to like come up for air and catch your breath. But you feel pretty kind of tousled the whole time. And the shifts are, they're a combination of things. Like there are, the ache of learning to let go of your children if you are a mother. And it is watching your parents age. It is physically letting go of who you once were. I mean, there's so much, right? And so, Abby, when you listen to all of the conversations, what would you say are, some of the most vulnerable themes that you've heard? Or that you're there, yeah.
The most vulnerable, I would
Yeah.
God, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I almost feel like there's like two camps, right? There's almost like a lot of women who are, I think I'm more in this category, like kind of having a new teenage era.
She has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Not
I
a
have a
husband.
boyfriend.
And he drives a truck.
He drives a Jeep.
Not a
he has
Volvo.
No, it's a Land Rover. No, I do. And
Sorry.
And we talk about this in our circles. I know we talk about kind of orgasms we're having and how they're totally different, than other orgasms. But it do. I feel in some ways like some of the stories, like for me, it's like there's a lot of firsts in my 50s. Like, first time at Burning Man, first time and I'm like sort of exploring, and like I feel like my kids are finally old enough that, I can not worry about them for 48 hours, and I feel more independent, and I feel like, there's, what do they say, 50 is the youth of old age. And that's really what it feels like. It feels like the youth of old age. And so we've heard a lot of stories about that. People finding love for the first time. People finding their passion, like what they actually were meant to do in their life. Taking these huge pivots, for the first time. And then I think on the vulnerable side, there's this duality, right? Because there's this loss, and you have loss of youth and fertility, and people's bodies are becoming unrecognizable to them on so many levels. And we've heard about dry vagina and tinfoil vagina and, all these different new wonderful transitions that people are going through. So there's like this duality to that. And there I think there is, loss, right? And grief in sort of your former self, but there's this also very vulnerable thing we've seen where I don't know what to call it, but we kind of call it like almost like a integration of your inner child, where it's like that little girl that you were at like 7 or 8 years old, like suddenly comes back. And for some people, that's like kind of integrating some pain maybe from the past or things that little girl experienced. And for other people, that's like finding new energy. But it's, going back to the portal. It's like, it's a very powerful time.
But I'm just going to jump in because that's me now.
That's good.
No, because I do think that the most vulnerable and the biggest word that we all have to work through and is shame. So many women are carrying around so much shame, and
I know.
it breaks my heart, and that's what we have to fix, because no one should feel that way at all.
And it's shame around things like, now I think it's much more out loud in the open, but even a couple years ago, like taking hormones, it was like this shame, or people weren't telling anybody, oh, I'm on HRT, it was like, and I think that we've heard people in our community say there's kind of this, if as a woman, there's this kind of sense of your value is in your fertility, your quote unquote fuckability, that we've had people say, like, there's a deep shame in not being that person anymore,
I want to pivot.
You can
so
have
we're
sex.
running out of time.
You
and
can
I've
have
got
sex with
two
yourself.
very important
That's all I'm
questions.
going to say. You can have sex with yourself. You don't need anybody.
Cheers. Yes, vibrators.
So you
for
are
free
all
outside.
fuckable. I'm sorry. Just
so-
going to tell you.
I have to ask you a question because this panel was actually called Hollywood on Midlife, and we didn't even get there.
How
We have to
much
come
more
back.
Hollywood could you get?
Sam Ski, we have to come back. So I wanna though end with two questions, and that is, we're here in LA, right? Hollywood is in part of changing culture, like it or leave it. Hollywood, media, films, TV, they do play a role in changing culture, whether it's religion or politics or sexuality and yes, we can only hope that the narrative of aging, that Hollywood can play a role in that with the stories that they choose to tell. Can you talk to us about where you see Hollywood right now, and like what are the big gaps, and how do we create the sense of urgency?
We don't have enough time.
I-
To be perfectly honest, it's a problem, right? It's why we're doing this, because we can put it on stage to prove how important these stories are and how incredible this time is in a woman's life, and make the next generations excited about getting here.
Yes.
Not afraid of it, but we have I'm trying. It's why I've gathered this group together. We've gathered this creative community of actors and writers and showrunners and producers and directors and CEOs and entrepreneurs and anybody that can. We just have to get the word out. Yeah. It's going to take a while, but it's slowly happening. We have heroes among us, like Sharon Horgan, who is out there.
Bad Sisters.
Bad Sisters.
Definitely much watched.
But she's not American.
Yeah.
European women are telling these stories and are on our screens. They've been doing it for years. American women are not. And we have to change that, right? And we are going to try. We're going to do everything we can. But we have a lot against us. We have a lot of issues around how you look. We're not allowed to age. My biggest problem right now in the business is just let us age. Just let us show up as who we are. And don't devalue us for that. Praise us. Don't give all the roles to the women who still look 20. Don't have a 50-year-old play a 70-year-old. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Golden Girls, we love Golden Girls because Golden Girls makes you excited about aging. It makes you so excited to grow old and move in with your friends and have fun and be sarcastic and have sex and be rude to each other. But they are all the age of the women on And Just Like That. Truth, right? They're all in their 50s playing 60, 70-year-olds because there were no roles for women of that age, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you also said the other day, you said it also requires getting more women behind the camera, and having, we had Sarah Rafferty, we had her, talking about, talking to the showrunner, talking to the director and saying, wait, no, like, can we do that instead of this? Raising your hand and in collaboration, a word that she used, creating those moments and more of that narrative.
And we also have to be given the opportunity to play the part in order to influence the story. So if there's one woman on a show who's happens to be 50, they won't even tell you she's 50.
Right.
It's just like you're either a mom or a grandmother. You figure it out how old I am.
But they have to be our stories.
Yeah.
I think the key is it has to start with the stories, and if you look at, our friend Pamela Adlon, the reason she killed it with Better Things, and she killed it, and every woman I know had a girl crush on Pam Adlon for the entire run of that show, and they were obsessed with her. And not only because it was such an authentic portrayal of, single motherhood and a woman in midlife, but that was her actual story. She took a really painful personal, divorce, whatever, and turned it, into medicine. And that is what we're doing, or we're trying to do, with midlife monologues. These stories are medicine.
Yeah. And they're your stories.
And but it can't come out of, it has to come out of our stories and telling these stories in a new way and putting them out there so that they're real, so that they're not whatever that Sex in the City follow-up.
Well, they can't be written by white men. Sorry.
Or gay men.
Boom.
Just
Yes,
gonna say
exactly.
it.
We're going to end it with this question. The question I ask every woman that I've interviewed and all around the country is, in a word, in a sentence, in a beat, what is your midlife truth? Truth meaning something that you feel deeply but you don't share necessarily with others. What is your midlife truth?
I feel like I've already shared mine. I mean, I do. I don't want to take up any more time, even though I really do. I could just talk about this all day long. That's my midlife truth. That's what it is. I had no idea coming into this time that I would want to talk about it as much as I do.
Yeah, I think my midlife truth is that I am just I'm so in love with women in a new way. And I think, like Constance was saying before, there's something now about when you meet other women in midlife, it's just, it all falls away. There is no bullshit. There's no competitiveness. There's no, I'm trying to be, no. It's just so real. We don't got that much time. Let's be real with each other, and it's an incredible sense of sisterhood that I feel like is the prize at the end of the road.
Thank you.